Greetings, Entertainment Channel, and today I woke up. I didn't feel well. I knew I was sick to my stomach, so rough morning for me, and I decided to. I might as well just casually talk about how the standings might look next year in the NHL, and that's turned into both on Instagram where I posted it and on the channel. People like he hates these teams. Clearly, he hates these. Holy crap! Yeah, right. That makes so much sense. And yet, I have to balance it. So when I'm putting together today's videos, I have to go, okay, so if I'm going to talk about these topics, I know I'm not going to get very many views. I'm not going to get enough views to pay the bills for the day. I need to do a video that I know is going to generate a lot of views, and standings videos always do. Because you're going to end up with a bunch of people who say, he's an idiot, he doesn't know what he's talking about. And then people who will point out when you're wrong and they won't give you credit when you're right. And if you try to take credit for when you're right, they go, oh, I see, you're a know-it-all. So I went through that a lot when the channel was first starting out, where I would try to argue, well, I got this right. And people are like, see, he just thinks he knows everything. Well, no. And I'm just a hockey fan the same as everybody else. But, so I posted on Instagram a picture of the board like this. Because I thought, yeah, all right, you want some standings to get mad about. Get mad about this. It just is one of those things where, I try to do something casual. And again, it's about you're aware as a YouTuber, you need to make sure your views are at a certain level if you're going to be able to actually pay your bills and make ends meet. And that's where I'm seeing it. It's the end of the month. So this is my last day of the month. And, the numbers are terrible, mostly, for the month. So I thought, well, I can throw this out there. This will generate, some views, and then I can update it later. And the funny thing, too, is when I do list videos like that, it's always with the mind of, I hope other people share their lists and we can have a discussion. But the way that the internet works, it's not, oh, that's interesting. I think it's going to end up with the standings like this. It's, you're stupid because you've got that team. You're a moron because... So, yeah, that was fun. You'll notice I got a Blue Jays hat on because I got a Blue Jays hat. I went through ice jerseys and went through. They've got it's not just hockey. They've got football and baseball stuff. So grab myself a Blue Jays hat, and I'm not here to talk to you guys as much about that as I am to talk about a movie I finally watched, Doctor Sleep. And normally would be Vaughn and I work together on this, but it's just going to be me on this one because I had a really close connection with The Shining. I've often said, and I'm only moderately joking, that I consider The Shining to be a Christmas movie. It's in the winter. It's a family movie. And it's about the underdog overcoming this great challenge. Just happens to be a kid who's running from his homicidal father. The original Shining is kind of a perfect movie. And the idea of even writing a sequel that Stephen King did, I thought was risky. Very, very risky. Because it's sort of a perfect story. And then to make it about Danny when he's an adult. Well, did we need to know who Danny was as an adult? So there are things the movie I thought got right. I thought the first part where Danny was a kid and they showed him with his mother, I thought that was more interesting than anything in the rest of the movie. I've got to be honest. I thought that part and the actress they had playing the Shelley Duvall mother character was perfect. She had all of the mannerisms there without trying to be Shelley Duvall, and yet when we get on into the movie, and then, of course, Danny has to run into the ghost of his father, it just felt to me like the actor that was portraying his father was a really bad knockoff of Jack Nicholson. And that was where I started to really have a problem with it. It felt like, to me, it was kind of coming apart at the seams before that. And when you see that it's his father, I was kind of hoping that maybe it looks sort of like Jack, but not that... it shouldn't look, you shouldn't watch a movie where it's a fake fat Elvis, right? Unless it's Bubba Hotep. Let's be honest, Bubba Hotep's amazing. But in this movie, it felt to me like it was a caricature of his dad, and they didn't really go into that. And it was, you need a drink? No, I'm not taking it. And then that just kind of goes away. And then, so they have Halloran's there, and good. I thought he was fine too. The actor they cast to play the part, I thought, did well. And he told them, okay, you got to make a box. In this box, you're going to put your spirits in, and you can put spirits in boxes. And then they don't really explain it. They don't really show Danny learning much about how to do it, just that he does it now. And then he's an adult, and he's kind of a prick as an adult. And so you get into the addiction side of it, and then he's trying not to be an addict anymore, which is a good storyline. But they kind of gloss it over. And I think that was part of the problem I had with it, was they were just glossing a bunch of stuff over. And then there was stuff that happened where I'm like, okay, what happened there? Wait, what happened there? Now, if you haven't seen it, I'm just going to tell you right now, I thought it was okay. I don't know that I'll ever watch it again. I do have the director's cut as well. Maybe the director's cut will fill in some of the blanks. If you haven't seen it, and if you like The Shining, watch it, because it is a sequel, kinda, and yet I hope, and here's the thing, before setting up to do this video, I went through Rotten Tomatoes and went through both the scores from the critics and from viewers, and viewers generally seem to really enjoy this movie far more than I do. Although there are some that said it was complete garbage and gave it half a star out of 5. I'm not on that level. I'm leaning more towards a 2.5 out of 5. Like, there's stuff that could have been fantastic, and it just didn't quite work. So, is it worth watching? Probably. Once. It is long, though, so if you haven't seen it, it's over 2.5 hours, and yeah. Alright. Now, from here on, there's going to be spoilers, because I got some stuff that I got to talk about. So, you ready? Okay, spoilers. I really, really, really cannot describe how disappointed I was with this movie. When I recognized the actress that was playing the Hat character, the big villain, I was like, okay, I know who that is. And everyone was like, yeah, I know who that is too. But we knew the person. We didn't know the exact place we knew her from. So, of course, IMDb's my friend. And I was like, okay, so that was Jenny in The Greatest Showman. This is quite a departure from The Greatest Showman character, where she was this really nice singer, and she was a really nice lady, and she's got this heart of gold. And in this movie, none of that's the case. And her role was interesting. I thought the idea that there's this group of immortal-ish people who are going around America looking for people that shine and feeding on their souls, I thought that was odd. And I didn't think that really got fleshed out very well. This is where when you're turning Stephen King novels into movies, Stephen King novels tend to be really, really long and kind of boring. So odds are there's probably like a nice long-winded explanation for the whole thing in his book, or maybe not. I've read some of his books, so sometimes there just isn't. It's just that's the way it is. I found that as villains, I don't know how threatened I felt by them. And then the Hat character, she's just sort of, yeah, I don't know. In the end, they portray her as being so much stronger than everybody else, but she doesn't seem to be. I'm bewildered is the problem. They build up this whole thing, and at one point in the movie I thought maybe the trailer's lying to me. Maybe they're not actually going to go to the Overlook, which I think would have made it better. I think where this movie kind of fails, it reminded me of Rob Zombie's Halloween remake. Rob Zombie's Halloween remake has some good moments to it, and it has some fresh, different ideas, but then you had to shoehorn in the original Halloween movie into the last 20 minutes of it, where it's the same kills, it's the same characters, blah, 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 and it all feels like been there, done that. This movie kind of does that too, where it's like, we got to go to the Overlook. And the first thing I said was, why are they going to the Overlook? And then he just drives up there. And it is explained in the original Shining movie, you don't just drive up there. You got to have a snowcat to get up there. You can't just drive up there. Not in the winter. And clearly it's winter. Now, you might be right watching this going, well, they didn't say just how far into winter it was. The whole point with The Shining was that they were isolated. And they couldn't get out. And in this movie, they could have got out. And then Danny decides, I'm not going to get out. I'm just going to stay here and die. And I didn't like it. I thought that was a cop out. I thought that the whole countdown to the boilers blowing up was ridiculous. I thought that the spirits being uncaged because they're hungry didn't make a lot of sense to me at all. I again, you know, the whole idea, oh, they're feeding on the spirit, right? Well, why wouldn't they just go after Danny? Why would they? And why? And then they just possess Danny. I don't. I found myself asking a lot of questions towards the end. So by about halfway into the movie, I'm like, you know, this is pretty good. This is pretty good. This hat character, she's interesting. I wonder what the hat's all about. I wonder what the big deal is with her hat. She gets really, really upset if somebody touches her hat. We're going to find out what's so special about. Or maybe not. Maybe we just won't find out anything. Because after the movie was done, I even asked Ivana, I said, so what was the deal with the hat? And she goes, yeah, I don't know. That didn't pay off at all. I didn't see or hear anything that paid that off. So part of the issue we had was that there were parts of the movie that built up to nothing. Where it just felt like everything was great. And then all of a sudden, nah, we're not going to pay that off. It wouldn't be the first time I've seen that in a Stephen King movie where they've adapted from a book. I know when Needful Things came out, a friend of mine who had read the book, she went through all of the things in the book that were partially adapted into the movie, but because they only adapted part, it didn't make any sense. She was like, you know, I don't like that these charms didn't make sense because in the book they explain it, and in the movie they just abandoned it halfway. She was really upset about it. And when I heard her explanation, it made sense to me. So I'm wondering if that happened here too. I saw one review that said the first half of the movie is in tune with the book, and then the second half is not like the book at all. It goes off on a whole tangent. Some parts of it come across as a superhero movie, and some parts of it come across as a horror movie. I have to say, when the Hat Lady is flying through the air, and she's flying over the planet, I got dude vibes from that. I got vibes of Big Lebowski. I don't think you're supposed to flash back to Big Lebowski when you're watching this horror villain doing her horror stuff. I don't think that's what you're supposed to be doing, but that's what I was doing. I was flashing back to Big Lebowski, and I kind of wanted her to look over, and there he is with the White Russian. Hey, sup? And she'd be like, "What are you doing up here? I'm evil." And he'd be like, "Yeah, that's like your thing, man. Just you do you. It's fine." And then he could just sort of fly off in another direction while she continues to go after the girl. The other part that I didn't understand was they went into the idea that this little girl who's really strong with the Shining. They didn't get into why people are stronger with the Shining. I can only assume it's midichlorians. And so a Star Wars reference. So she goes to this little girl's room, and the little girl takes control, and the little girl's in her head looking through her files for all these wicked secrets in her past. Never comes up again. And I watching that scene, I was like, that's really smart that this little girl turned the tables on this villain. I can't wait to see how that pays off. And then she's waiting in the car. She's waiting in the car, which was stupid because they pull up to they pull up to the Overlook. I'm sorry, when I get upset, I tend to kind of meander around. They pull up to the Overlook, and Danny gets out, and I'm like, all right, turn off the lights. And he's like, you get in the car, and I'm like, Danny, turn off the lights. And then Yvonne's like, but he said he's going to leave the heater on, and I'm like, they're going to run out of gas or the battery's going to die. What's he doing? And then he goes in the hotel, and he's not cold, even though it's snowing everywhere. She's not cold, and then he just flicks on a bunch of lights, because they never turn off the power to the Overlook Hotel, because that's how power works in Colorado, I guess. And as he's walking through, the lights are coming on by themselves, and like he's powering them. I guess the lights are possessed as well. I don't know, and it just didn't make a whole lot of sense. And then the spirits are, but they shouldn't, and I don't. And then there was Lloyd, and you have the bartender thing, but they didn't really flesh that out. I thought there was more they could have done with that, and I thought that could have been a good scene, but because you've got the guy who's not Jack Nicholson standing there looking really not like Jack Nicholson, which is distracting just how much. Like the mother they had, she looked and sounded somewhat like Shelley Duvall, but it was a different actress, you could tell. And this guy, they were trying to make it more that he was a Jack Nicholson light than actually being somebody. Why not just get Jack Nicholson to come in and just de-age him? Because it would have looked silly, but then it's Jack Nicholson. And then she's still out in the car and the lights are still on, and then she gets out of the car and goes into the hotel and the lights are still on, and I'm thinking, all right, so are you leaving the car running? Why are the lights still on? Why don't you turn? Because if you don't turn off your lights, you're gonna kill your battery. And this is the kind of stuff that drives me nuts when I'm watching movies. It's the same as when you see a scene and they don't close the door and you're like, something's gonna come through there, and then nothing does, and you're like, why didn't they close the door? Sometimes it's misdirection. Sometimes there's some smart misdirection going on, especially with a horror movie. But this one, they don't close doors, and it doesn't matter. And I didn't even understand there didn't seem to be a real plan, and there didn't seem to be a real plan when it came to the Overlook Hotel that made sense. Like, okay, he lets all these things out of his head, right? He lets all these spirits out of the boxes in his head, and they attack the hat girl who loves hats, because who doesn't love a hat? I don't love a hat that much, but she does. It's magic, but they never explain why. And then they tear her apart. They could have done that anywhere. He could have done that at the side of a road. He could have done that. He could have done it anywhere. Anywhere. Just, it really didn't matter. And then I found myself asking so many questions about why things were happening. And when you're watching a movie, and you always have to take your brain and kind of shut it off at the door if you're watching a horror movie. That's kind of important with horror movies. Sort of, the trope of why is she running upstairs instead of out the front door? Because it's a horror movie. Just relax and enjoy it. But in this movie, there were just so many illogical things going on where I couldn't understand. I'm like, okay, so they're trying to get this girl because they want her power. But as soon as all of her immortals are wiped out, she has enough power to last quite a while. So now she's going after her just for vengeance, and then she's feeding on Danny because, well, I don't. Oh, we should have found you earlier. Well, you didn't, because Stephen King didn't think about immortals. He was just writing a good story with The Shining. Although, I will say, Stephen King hated the Stanley Kubrick version, and then made his own his own Shining miniseries, which was closer to the book, and it sucked. I've tried to watch it twice. Hated it. It's boring. It just doesn't resonate with me at all. I know that King didn't like how weird it was, the Kubrick movie, or that he cast Jack Nicholson as Jack Torrance, and Jack already looked completely insane at the start of the movie. They ate each other up. Like, he is, but that's where Kubrick was with it. I wonder, the one thing I'm wondering when I look back on this movie, on Doctor Sleep, is, was this a matter of a director trying to both pay homage to the Kubrick version and adapt the book from Stephen King? Because those two don't necessarily go together. I thought that it started with the chords, it started with that feeling of The Shining, and it started with zooming in, and I thought, this is great. A lot of what makes The Shining work are atmospheric shots and long single scenes, very, very broad scenes to establish a location, to establish a setting. This movie doesn't really have that. You're always on the road. The houses don't matter. There's nothing really unique about anywhere that anybody is. The bad guys basically live like gypsies, and that's how they're portrayed. It kind of reminded me of Thinner. They reminded me of the gypsies in Thinner, and I mean, obviously in Thinner they were the good guys, kinda. The Thinner, they're not great. I mean, they curse them, so they're not perfectly innocent here, but I found myself wanting to feel kind of immersed in it, and I never got immersed in it like you do with The Shining. The Shining, from start to finish, I can watch The Shining 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 times. I don't know how many times I've watched it. And as soon as it starts, I'm like, all right, I'm here for the next 2.5 hours. I am good. I am fine. And every line, every moment, everything is perfect. You think about where Jack is in the washroom with the guy who originally hacked up his family, the ghost of the guy who hacked up his family. And he's having this whole talk with him. That scene goes on for quite a while. And there's a lot of dead silence in there, and there's a lot of moments where he's like, You Grady? You used to be the Undertaker here. I don't think so, sir. I think I'd remember something like that. And then the whole willful boy. and he's a very willful boy, and you should, and it starts out as this party scene, and then he gets the drink spilled on him, and they go into the washroom, and this scene just builds everything up so that when Jack comes out, he's probably going to go after Danny, he's probably going to kill him. And it's that kind of play that I don't see in Doctor Sleep. I don't see this gradual build in it. There's the parts where the little girl is talking to Dan through the wall. They play with that, and then they don't. And there were parts where I was like, wait, why isn't he trying to talk to her through the wall? Why isn't she trying to talk to him? There were points during that movie where I just thought that what they were doing didn't necessarily make sense for the intelligence of the characters. And I think part of where the movie is going to have a problem is The Shining, to me, is a perfect movie. I've never watched that movie and watched a scene and gone, you could do without this scene. You could do without that scene. You could do without... There's nothing. There's nothing in that movie. As soon as Dan goes into the Overlook Hotel and he starts turning everything on, I'm immediately thinking of Jack going, check out the Snowcat. Go check it out. You're not going anywhere. And just that moment. And so it's this visceral feeling I have. And I think that hurts the movie, because now I'm comparing it to this great thing that it can't possibly live up to. It doesn't have those fully fleshed out characters that you have in the original Shining. It doesn't have this absolute moment. I mean, they try to build to that final battle thing, but it really doesn't work for me. I'm being honest. It really doesn't work for me. And I thought the first half of the movie, it built up relatively well. I thought there's the scene where they killed the little baseball player kid. I thought that was too grim, too graphic. I thought that it was a little bit over the line. Like, I get it, but I thought that it was a little bit heavy-handed. Like, oh, you really need to hate these people. Look what they're doing. And I thought that was kind of heavy-handed. I thought it was probably a little bit overboard. And then you have Dan go back with his buddy to dig it up, and I thought, I don't know. And just, there were some moments in there, like the little girl's dad dies. It would have been nice to have seen, and I know I haven't watched the director's cut, it may be in the director's cut, but it would have been nice to have seen, I don't know, something with the dad? Something that happened? Somewhere? Something? Because he's gone, and then that's that, and I thought it was kind of a wasted opportunity. Not only that, but where I had a problem was that if I knew that my little girl was in trouble and these guys are going out with guns, I'd probably want to go tag along and help. On some level, I'm going to want to go and help and make sure these people can't hurt my little girl. So, yeah, that was, I mean, and I get why they filmed it the way they did, and the switcheroo thing that happened there, but man, I don't know. It had so much potential, and I think that's where the problem was. I think the potential and the fact that it's not The Shining and creating a sequel for that is a fool's errand. It would be like trying to do a sequel to Clockwork Orange, another Kubrick classic. It could never live up to Clockwork Orange. And I've only watched Clockwork Orange like 3 times in my entire life, because that's a movie that it's pretty harsh, it's pretty graphic, and it's pretty out there with the violence, but it's also perfectly put together, and to my mind, so is The Shining. But I'd be interested to know what you guys think, if you saw Doctor Sleep and what you thought of it. And again, I just didn't get the whole villains thing. I didn't get her deal. I never really saw her as a major threat to the little girl, or necessarily to Dan. And then with Dan there, I was kind of like, you know what? He's been pathetic the whole movie. Yeah, if she offs him, all right, because he's kind of been pathetic. So that's a problem too. And then when she said something about nicking his femoral artery, I went, nah. Because femoral artery, if you cut your femoral artery, you're bleeding out. So unless he had a tourniquet handy, and I never saw him put one on his leg, if she'd nicked the femoral artery, he's dead. So that's that. So as soon as she said that, I went, yeah, no, you didn't. Nope. No, you didn't. So that's kind of where I had a problem. But anyways, I'd be interested to know what other people thought. Again, I know most people love this movie. I just couldn't. I tried. I really did. I bought it. I bought it as soon as it came out. I was like, yes, Doctor Sleep. I get to watch this finally. That's great. Ewan McGregor, I love his work. He's fantastic. And then I watched it and I was like, eh. So let me know what you guys think. Again, 2.5 stars out of 5 for me. Let me know your thoughts. Hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. And hey, thank you guys so much for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.